Hello, hello, hello. I think we're live, or we're about to be if we're not yet. Hello. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to today's live event. This live event. I can see that we've got a few folks already utilizing the chat. So thank you for that. Welcome. The chat is open. Please feel free to avail yourselves of the chat. You can ask questions, say hello, be kind. That's really about it. I'm not going to kind of go on too much about all this kind of stuff. I will quickly remind you, though, if you haven't yet checked out the brand new, or at least redone, jeffrolka.com, just finished doing that. There's, the kind of, basically I put everything now together under one umbrella. So if you wanted to check out my AAA method, which is totally free, you can go and do that there. If you wanted to get the transposition PDFs based upon an older video that I did, those are there too. And there's lots of other premium resources. You want to have a lesson with me, you can get some information about that. And it's not quite that straightforward, but you and I would correspond and make sure that we're a good fit and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, well, here I am, and I will have a question today. The nerd far away. That's a cool user ID. Hello, Russell Brothers. Hola. David, good morning. What do you advise for those days when the voice just won't cooperate? I don't mean when sick or a sore throat, but when the voice doesn't respond as usual. Quit or work it through. I'll usually take a step back and find what does work. So if I'm just really having a rotten day, then I will backpedal until I find something that is working for me. And that means narrowing the range, sometimes making the exercises very, very straightforward, very basic. Sometimes it's just a single pitch, where you're doing like that's just one note, and I'm cycling through the vowels. If even that is rough, then I might break that up into a dynamic air pressure exercise. We, that kind of a thing. And then, so basically, find what is working, and then figure out where you have to go from there. So if you got to do a recording, or you've got to teach, or you have a rehearsal or something to that effect, then you have to plan accordingly, obviously, because you may have quite a lot of practicing to do before you're going to be ready for what you're warming up for. But if it's just a typical day, then like let's just say we're in a kind of placeholder day where I'm not necessarily warming up for anything. I'm just wanting to make sure that I keep my vocal function high. I want to stay sharp. And I'm having a really bad day, I might do just a few very simple exercises like that. I might run that scale 3, 4, 5 times, maybe not even that many times if it's really bad. And then, go away for 15 minutes, come back and do it again. It's all about what your goal is for that day. I hope that helps. Russell Brothers, since it's coffee hour, what's your favorite flavor of coffee? Is it regular black or something else? I pretty much always drink coffee black. So for those that aren't in the coffee culture, that's like nothing in it, basically. No cream, no sugar, no sauces, coffee sauce, if that's such a thing. I don't think that's such a thing, but there you go. And if you want to get a little bit more specific than that, I generally am doing some type of pour over, but I recently got an AeroPress, and I cannot argue with the efficiency of it. And I must admit, it makes a very good cup of what I really think of as filter coffee. I think sometimes the AeroPress gets thought of as like an espresso alternative, and it's really not espresso. But the efficiency of extraction is just off the charts as compared to other pour over or percolation methods. But I am also extremely fond of the Clever Dripper or the Hario switch. The Hario switch I like a bit better because it's made out of glass. It's just that it's so expensive. But that is an immersion method. So you actually allow the coffee to steep in the hot water. And so I use that quite frequently. As it happens today, I had a cup using the Hario switch, and that was Intelligentsia Classic Blend. I'm a pretty big fan. I have no affiliations. I have no sponsorships. I would love to be sponsored by Intelligentsia Coffee, but I don't expect that to be in the cards for me. But anyways, first cup was Intelligentsia with the Hario switch. The second cup was some kind of supermarket brand mocha java that I made with a Chemex with a paper filter. And I used a cloth filter on the Hario switch for those that are into that kind of a thing. Cool question. I love questions about coffee. Big fan of James Hoffman. If you haven't checked out James Hoffman, I would highly recommend it. It changed everything for me in the way that I was making coffee. Jeff, do you have any tips, tricks for singing strongly right around the primo passagio? I'm in an ensemble for a show, and there are a couple of numbers where most of the song is right at that break. So, Nerd Far Away, and that's your user ID. Just, that puts me in an awkward position, as one might imagine. It would be helpful to know your FOC. If you are a tenor or baritone, then what I would recommend you do is anticipate the vowel modifications and the additional airflow required as you get into the zona de passagio, and that will probably, that will allow a little bit more air to travel over the vocal fold. That'll create more resonance, more sympathetic vibrations within the whole system. The soft tissues in the oral cavity and that kind of a thing. Not to mention just the amplitude of the vocal folds proper. And that'll make you a bit stronger, a little bit more voluminous there. This may have an impact on the performance around the secondo passagio. But if you're not really going over the secondo passagio, then that's probably an okay thing to do in the context of those pieces. If you are a mezzo or a soprano, then that gets a little bit trickier because the primo passagio for mezzos and sopranos can be quite challenging. To a certain extent, the same advice applies, but what you have to realize is that you have to stay flexible enough in order to make the transition across the primo passagio. Mezzos and sopranos can often, especially when they've had prior classical training and their middle voice ranges are very, very developed and very cricothyroid dominant, then that primo passagio, if you're starting below it, can be rather tricky. And you're going to need to be able to do those modifications and increase the airflow, but also remain flexible enough so that you can go through that transition across the primo passagio, get into your middle voice range effectively, or in and out and, kind of up and down throughout the duration of the pieces, and maintain that flexibility so you can still sing properly and with good intonation and all that. So, yeah, that would be my suggestion. Kyle Rosa, hello from Ohio and hello from California. Kyle, thank you for joining us this morning. I would love to know whereabouts in Ohio you are. I worked in Sandusky, Ohio. You may know what that means. For a couple summers, that might tell you a bit more about where I was working. Also, nice mic. Is it new? Russell Brothers Animation. No. But I love this microphone. I normally, you may have heard me talk about this before. I don't like having a mic in between us. So normally I don't use mics on stands. And of course, too, this mic will get in the way of the keyboard a little bit if I'm not careful about it. And feel free to remind me if I do. But no, I got this mic, I don't know, years ago. And this is the microphone that I used in the Live at the Berkeley Piano Club recordings, though I used it a little bit more kind of, not the way you'd use a stage mic typically. I had it a little bit further away. Now, this particular mic, you don't have to be right up, literally on top of the thing the way you might want to be for an SM58 or something like that. And so consequently, I tend to use this microphone a lot for acoustic performances. If I'm playing acoustic guitar and singing, or if I'm playing a piano and singing, it is, for those who wish to know, a Neumann KMS 105. And I think that for my voice, it does a beautiful job. I love it. And especially in live performance, you can be, inch and a half, 2 inches off the grill here. And when you've got your monitors right, or whatever you're using to monitor is set up correctly, and you got a little bit of space around you, it just creates this beautiful environment to sing within when you have to use amplification. I think like a lot of vocalists, I'm not particularly fond of getting microphones involved, especially if I don't have to. But for most performances where you want to be heard and there's things going on, or people talking and all that kind of stuff, then microphones are really, really helpful in those scenarios. And if you have to use a mic and it's within your budget, then this is, and if it works for your voice, then I would highly recommend it. If it's not quite in your budget, but you don't like an SM58 or a Beta 58, I was just talking with someone the other day about microphone selection, and I was reminded of the Sennheiser E935, and I used those for a number of years, and where the front line, which is like the people who stand at the front of the stage, the front line all were using E935s, and as a dynamic microphone, which comes in at well under like a third, I think it's about a third of the price of this, it's delightful. It's just absolutely delightful microphone, really smooth, dynamic, much less expensive than this, but a really, really beautiful microphone. And again, I don't have any sponsorships. I bought this microphone with my very own money. I don't own the 935 that was bought as part of the organization that I was working with. So I only had the pleasure of using it. I did not own it. I might actually have to pick one of those up in the not terribly distant future, and maybe I can review it on this channel and put these two side by side so you can hear the differences. But this is a hypercardioid condenser pattern, condenser microphone. So the hypercardioid is the pattern, the way it picks things up. So you'll hear that it starts to reject me as I come around the sides like that, and it'll pick me up again. So when you have like loud noises on stage, you don't hear all that stuff bleeding in. Dylan Klein, welcome. Always nice to see you pop up. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, good to see you here. David, and do you recommend any book on music theory? Well, that's a good question. Most of my music theory, I did all my music theory studies at university. So the books that I think of when I think about, if someone asks a music theory question and I have to kind of go back and figure out what's going on, there's two main texts that I use to answer those questions. One is Grout and Poliska, and that's Harmony and Voice Leading, I think it's called. If I can find it. What do you do with it now? I've put it someplace else. That's what happens when you don't put things back, is you can't find them. So I don't know where Grout and Poliska went. It's somewhere around here. And the other book that I use when I need to answer questions. There we are. Oh, there's Harmony and Voice Leading. This is that. Okay, well, I put them side by side. So that's Harmony and Voice Leading, second edition. So I'm sure there's newer editions now, but Aldwell and Schechter. And this is your basic comprehensive guide to Western tonal theory. But I don't know if that's something you really want to study out of, but it really does answer pretty much all the questions. And then when I need to answer other questions, and it kind of goes into the sort of more historical aspects of music and sometimes music theory and things like that, I still use a hard copy of the New Harvard Dictionary of Music, very generously given to me, believe this or not, by my high school band director. So my high school band director gave this to me when I graduated and left for university. And I remain grateful to this day for that text. So Leonard Shem, if you're out there, thank you. I truly appreciate it. And shout out to Phil Holm and John Smith as well. Sort of gentle rivalry. I went to the University of Michigan, and Leonard Shem went to Michigan State University. And when he gave me the book, he's like, yeah, I was tempted to write like Go State somewhere in there. And I really wish he would have done that. I would have liked to have been flipping through the pages and then found like a big Go MSU or Go State in there. That'd have been really cool. Anyways, I hope that answers your question, David. I don't really know any kind of music theory light resources out there, but the one thing that I can tell you is that if you did decide to go with Grout and Poliska, and I'm sure you can find inexpensive copies that are used online, that if you can work your way through it, then it will answer the questions that you're coming up against in the music that you're working on, because it's just anything that's tonal is covered in that text. When you start getting into 20th century, tone rows or things like that, aleatoric notation and whatnot, that's not going to get covered in that book, but pretty much everything else is. For me, it's 12 p.m. Perfect coffee hour. Brilliant. Your exercises help me find my mixed belts. Thank you. You're very welcome. I think that's Harry Mahood. Yeah. I would question your usage of mixed belts. If you're belting, you're not mixing. Those two terms, at least as far as I in my studies go, and the way that I understand the usage of the voice, in order to have a mixed range, the vocal fold must elongate. That means that the cricothyroid muscles are acting on the vocal fold. If you are belting, by definition, you are you are trying to keep the voice using only the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. And by definition, that means that the cricothyroid musculature is not active. If you are allowing elongation, then you are, in fact, doing a bit of cricothyroid dominance, and that then means it's not, strictly speaking, belting. So yeah. But, I don't mean to be pedantic, but it helped me immeasurably to understand what my vocal folds were doing and how it worked, so that I could use my voice better. And I say those things in the hope that it will help you too, and that it will maybe shed a little bit of light if you're having any kind of difficulties. Diane, flavorings. Yeah, coffee flavorings. Russell Brothers, black is my favorite. The occasional cream is great. Every once in a while I think about that. Like, I'm like, yeah, I should, have a splash of milk in here, but then I don't. Or if I feel like that, then I'll have a cup of tea. Joe McGee, I suffer from excess mucus after a cold. Do you have any tips to speed up the clearance? Vocalizations and room temperature water are going to be your best friends. If you are really, really suffering, which it sounds like you are, then rather than having like one practice session per day, try to have, 2, maybe 3 if you can. They don't have to be particularly long. What you're just doing is trying to pass air over the vocal fold, get things vibrating, clear that mucus, and, move on. Swallowing can also help with clearing mucus a little bit, but prevention is, of course, worth a pound of cure. So if you are getting ready to sing for that day, plan accordingly. Have time in advance. Make sure that you're well warmed up. And again, if possible, maybe do some very, very light, easy vocalizations several times throughout the day so that you can clear the mucus as best you can, and then go on to your singing obligations. I know I said it once, I'm going to say it again. Room temperature water is also extremely important. That will really, really be your best friend when it comes to mucus, because it will just kind of help keep everything lubricated, and it will, in fact, dilute the mucus, thin it a little bit so that you can move it off the vocal fold more easily. And of course, avoid clearing your throat or grunting or any of those things. And that's a great reminder that I should drink something. Other than coffee, that is, which I've been drinking water too today. So, and I will mute my microphone so that you don't have to listen to the glug, glug, glug. I think you can still hear me through the piano mics though. But just hopefully not my glugging. All right, I'm back in the room. And I suppose this is also another good time to remind everyone, jeffrolka.com's totally new. Lots of cool stuff over there. It's finally the consolidation of just a lot of different things. And as part of it, I built a whole new course on breathing for singing. So if you, and I talk about breathing and passagio breath management a lot. If you're having questions about upper register response, and if you're not getting the kind of consistent performance from your voice that you would expect given the amount of time and practice that you're doing, or if you're confused about the idea of sticking your stomach out and pulling it back in and how it is or is not working for you, my Breathing for Singing course is brand new. I built it for those reasons because I wasn't getting the kind of upper register response that I thought was appropriate for the amount of time that I was practicing and the training that I had acquired. General consistency and all those other things, it just wasn't adding up. And when I learned about passagio breath management and realized that I had been doing the stick your stomach out, pull it back in thing, which isn't really passagio breath management, despite that being oftentimes said out there, it took me some time to make the adjustment. And now I've finally built this course, which I've been looking forward to for such a long time, and finally been on a platform where I felt like the platform could support it. So I would highly recommend you check it out if any of those things sound familiar. It is not free, but it's on the website, and it does also give you a free year of entry into the RVC, a closed community that I moderate. And if you've got questions, you can post audio or video, and I'll have a look and can help out. Anyway, the chat's probably going to go crazy here when I tap the bottom there, but yep, there we go. Okay, let's find out where we are. Missouri. Russell Brothers, love from Missouri, love from California. Missouri. Or is it Missouri? I'm not sure exactly. Okay, so I've got a lot of questions. I'll try and speed it up a little bit, but I do so enjoy going in deep on these questions. So, hello Jeff, longtime viewer. This is Tainax Mobile Games. Don't get much chance to ask many questions. I have borderline COPD. My main problem lately has been air management in my singing. Is there any way to work past this? COPD, I don't know what that is, I'm afraid. Let me just quickly look this up. So where am I here? Okay. It should be, what is that? Chronic inflammatory lung disease. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you suffer from that. Let's see here. Is there any way to work past this? You know, you're going to have to talk to your doctor about that. And how that's going to affect air management in my singing. The thing is that air management in singing is not just about the volume of air, it's also about how you engage with the core of the body. And I mean, I hate to be that kind of a guy, but I just got done talking about my Breathing for Singing course, and management of air isn't just about the quantity or with what degree of engagement you apply. It's also the efficiency that you use in the vowel alignment. So you might need to look at your vowel alignment. You may need to examine how you are using your core body to compress the air column so that you have a positive flow of air and you sing. Again, not to be too shameless about it, but that's what my Breathing for Singing course is all about. And if you coupled that with the free AAA method, which begins the process of vowel alignment and singing fundamentals, then you'd be able to work on that. And of course, like all the videos here on YouTube are primarily about vowel alignment. So I would isolate these things out of like registration event practice and all that kind of stuff. Stick to a comfortable range of your voice, evaluate your vowel alignment, evaluate your appagio breath management practice, and see how you go from there. That's where I would begin. Nalini, black coffee, yeah. Lately, to cut down on sugar dairy, well done. Have you recorded any lessons to teach singers to play warm-up scales? I did. If I learned scales for my vocals, it would motivate me to the keyboard. Yeah, it's on the channel. Let me see if I can grab a link for you. Let me see if I can grab a link really quickly, and I'll pop it in the chat. So talk amongst yourselves. No, I'm just kidding. I can still talk. I know, and you can still see me too. But since I have to go to a different screen, it feels funny. Let's see here. Scales. There it is. Okay, scales for singing practice, and let's get the link. And we'll pop this in the chat. So it's in the chat now, or it's about to be anyways. There you go. I think I put it in there. Hopefully it should be down at the bottom. Love from New Zealand. Hello in New Zealand. My brother-in-law is living in New Zealand right now. I think he likes it. It certainly looks beautiful. I hope that one day I can travel there and check everything out. It seems like a fantastic place. I'm a 20-year-old operatic tenor, and I use your warm-ups basically every day. Thank you for all that you do. You're very welcome. I am glad that they're there to be used in that capacity. I hope that they continue to serve you well, and I appreciate you checking it all out. Thank you so much. Kevin Jones, how can you sustain your breathing for singing? Just got done talking about that, have to admit. So I'm going to say you may need to review back when this is all done, but in brief, it's a complex collection of items. It's not just the flow of air. That's part of it. It's also your vowel alignment. It's also how you are doing your appagio breath management, your engagement, so that the subglottic air pressure is appropriate to the range that you are in. So it's dynamic. It's not a set it and forget it kind of a thing. It has to change and adjust as you ascend and descend the pieces of your repertoire. But I kind of went a little bit more in depth. That's a nice summary of it a few minutes ago. AC Light, hey, good to see you pop up. Thank you again. AC Light was featured not terribly long ago in a vocal coach analysis video. I've only done a couple of those, and I look forward to doing more. An awesome song that I got to have a listen to and explore, and I really appreciate your submission. So let's see. Hey Jeff, hope you're having a great day. I'm singing for church from Maundy Thursday tonight. Wish me luck. Well, break a leg. All the best to you, and have a great show based upon your recording from before. I'm sure it'll be great. Thanks for chiming in. Shalom. Hello, Jeff. Can you please explain what is to scat? I hope I got it right. And how one can practice that and incorporate into their singing repertoire. Scatting, nonsense syllables that vocalists use to improvise. You could incorporate it almost, you use your imagination. You could scat your scales if you wanted to. Zee-ba do la ba dee do dee ba. Zee-ba do ba dee ba do ba da. You might kind of want to come up with patterns and things like that. I am not a tremendous jazz vocal aficionado, but that's what scat singing is. And I would suggest that in the beginning stages of your scatting, you stick to kind of predictable patterns that you can do with your scales. Do some scatting, get accustomed to it, and then work outwards from there, getting into more complex patterns, maybe some arpeggios, and then ultimately onto like 7 chords and things like that you would expect to find in the jazz repertoire, if it's jazz that you're even doing. Now that I've had some water, I can feel when my voice is starting to crustify. So excuse me for just a moment more. I will again do the courtesy mute on my microphone channel. It is amazing how much water I can go through in, I mean, a day is one thing, but even in just like an hour-long session. Of course, here in this environment, I'm talking even more than I would in a lesson. I drink a lot when I'm teaching lessons, but here I'm like a motorboat nonstop. So I can really feel it. Anyway, yes, I have unmuted my microphone. Let's see, the nerd far away. It's fun being called a nerd, but my name is Carrie. Hey. Oh, well, it's totally up to you, Carrie. And I'm a soprano with classical training. LOL. Thanks. So I'm glad I mentioned that before when I was talking about it. My spidey sense was up there, and I was like, something about this, because a lot of times, like, baritones and tenors, like barely, like half the time when baritones and tenors have had some training and they've got some good airflow happening, they won't even know about the primo passagio. They'll sing right past it. I was like this for a long time. Won't even notice it. But it's the mezzos and the sopranos that often have questions about the primo passagio. And that can be really tricky. Not an insignificant challenge. I have done a video, like maybe one or two videos. I think I did a separate shorter video that is specifically about the primo passagio and working on navigating that successfully. And additionally, I have included a section in the soprano comprehensive warm-up from, I guess now about a year and a half ago. That has a section on the primo passagio as well. So that might be worth checking into, just if for no other reason than those are dedicated practices. Just, one video is a separate video, and then in the comprehensive is a section that is on the primo passagio. Then that might just get you into the practice and get the feel for that transition and hopefully make it easier for you. I gave a shout out to Love from Missouri. Oh, cool. CP. Kevin Jones says CP. I don't know what that means. CP. Please tell me if I'm not sure what that means. Please feel free to drop it in the chat, because I'm I don't know what that is. When I do humming, there is no vibration feel in my mouth. What I do. Without hearing you and having a chance to work through some exercises, it's hard to say exactly. But the way that I can get the vibe, so if I hum the way I might normally, I feel it like that, and I can feel my lips tingling and things like that. But in order to make that stop, I have to quite aggressively flex the root of my tongue and depress down on the larynx. So about if I move this aside and I pull my scarf down so that you can see my larynx here. Here's my humming normal. There's my larynx. And then in order to make that stop, I have to depress my larynx way down there. I suspect that that's what you're doing. If that's the case, gently monitor. Listen to my words very carefully here. Monitor. So it's like your hand is barely touching. You are barely touching your throat, and you are monitoring the position of the larynx, and see if you can release those muscles a little bit to allow the larynx to come to a more neutral position. Yes, that is a higher position than what you may have pressed it down to, but it should be about the same location. In other words, no higher than when you are neither singing nor talking nor doing anything. So if you just sit still and just hold still for a moment and check on the location of your larynx. When you hum, see if you can have your larynx in that same spot. See if that helps. Harry. Is it Harry? Hold on a second. Hanny or Haney. My apologies. Is there any work by you that I can view? A song or so would be great. Really curious about your singing. Well, yeah. I mean, there's, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe 8 videos on the YouTube channel that are live. If you search my channel for Live from the Berklee Piano Club, then you'll find a collection of work that I did. And it's a selection of covers. They're not, they're my songs, but it's not new. So live, like it's a live gig. And those songs were taken from 2 albums of mine. One is called Somewhere in the Fade, and the other one is called The Atlantean. And so you can check those out. Those were recorded live at the Berklee. It's kind of in the name, right? Live at the Berklee Piano Club. There you go. Those are on the YouTube channel. And if you go to iTunes and look for me, then you should be able to find like under albums by this artist. Then there's a variety of different stuff. I did a Beatles EP some years ago. I've got Somewhere in the Fade. The Atlantean is also there. I did like a Christmas thing some years ago. And I've done work with some other artists. And you can find that and have a listen to it. If you wanted some directed listening, I think that Sea Sponge at Live at the Berklee Piano Club turned out really nicely, and Dana Olive Tree, I think was her name. Dana Olive Tree, I think, was the cellist that played with me at that gig. Just a shout out to her. She did such a lovely job, and kind of on shorter notice. So just a shout out there. Sea Sponge from Live at the Berklee Piano Club, I think turned out really, really well. I think that Sweet Angel turned out really well at Live at the Berklee Piano Club too. From the Atlantean, Obsidian is really fun. It's huge number. I really enjoyed the reprise to Hold the Line from that album. From Somewhere in the Fade, Sarah turned out really, really well, I think. There's another album that I did called Dandelion, but that has blessedly gone into oblivion because it just deserves to go to oblivion. And I think there's more recorded material that goes further back than that, but that's the most recent stuff. And currently I've got a few projects that are happening, and hopefully those will be out imminently, really. Some stuff that I'm co-writing and guesting on, so I'm doing like backing vocals and instrumentation as needed. I do have like a few songs of my own that I'm working on, but I think I really just like working with other people more. I enjoy writing music, but I like writing it with people, and yeah, I think it's just much more fun. So I'm very quick to put any kind of songs that I'm writing on the back burner once I have an opportunity to work with somebody else and work on their music, or work on music together, or even work on my songs and work them up together with those people. So yeah. Let's see here. Jeff, so happy you're here. I've asked this topic. This is Patrick Carroll. Was wondering if you could share. My goal is to sing without tension, supported and free. I'm always afraid of straining. How can I stop the fear? Well, that's a really cool question. And here's the thing. You're going to have to ask yourself some questions about the sort of origins of that anxiety and why you feel afraid. Because there's all kinds of different fears, you know. My sense of fear around performance stems from feelings of not belonging, of not being wanted, of feeling like I think I said this already, but feeling like I don't belong, like I'm not worthy would be another way of putting it, right? And that kind of manifests itself in pretty specific ways for me that over the years I have come up with strategies to deal with. So there's that kind of fear. There's the fear of, is my voice going to perform? And you have to ask yourself some really honest questions about this when you're looking at that. You know, ask yourself how you're vocalizing. Ask yourself if you have a regular practice. Are you practicing every day? If you're not, well, you kind of might have some reason to be afraid, because that daily practice is what makes it possible for us to perform at the levels that we ultimately aspire to, right? Like you want to go out and do your absolute best. Now, if you're cool with your absolute best being reflective of a kind of casual once or twice a week practice habit, well, that's fine. That's absolutely, totally fine. And you should go and do that and ask yourself the other questions about why you might be feeling that fear. But if you're wanting to perform at a level other than that, then you have to look at the practice, and you have to look at how you're practicing too. And if you're doing all of those things and you're like, oh, I'm practicing every day and I totally support, at least I'm pretty sure I do, and all this kind of stuff, then, you know, maybe find a local professional that can evaluate your singing. You know, I don't know, have a lesson with me if you want. Like, there's other ways, or there's other people. I'm happy to make referrals too. Like, I know amazing singing instructors that are wonderful, that would be happy to meet with you and, you know, help you to figure out what's going on. You know, ask yourself the questions that are going to show you why you might be feeling this way. And then you're going to find the solutions that help you work beyond it. So for me, process is a big thing. For those of you that have done any of my courses, whether it's the AAA method or the Breathing for Singing course or the High Note Bootcamp, it's pretty obvious that I am extremely invested in processes. I make them delineated as step-by-step as I possibly can, and that is to get you from one point to the next as swiftly but effectively as possible. So for me, dealing with my performance anxiety or my fear, a lot of that was about having processes around both my practice as well as how I conducted myself on the day of gigs or performances and things like that. So, you know, I don't know exactly what the specifics are for your scenario, but hopefully there's something in there that you can take and run away with and get to work on, basically. Yeah, it's for me, it's a lot of processes. Russell Brothers Animation, I learned the ukulele not that long ago, trying to record a song I wrote. Can you play the ukulele? Just asking because I brought up the topic. I was once asked to play ukulele at a wedding, and so I learned enough chords to be able to play like 2 songs that day on the ukulele. And I bought one thinking that I was going to do more of it, and then I just never touched it again. I think I'm much more, for me personally, anything that stands in the way, anything that's an impediment from the singing, I find a little bit irritating. So like guitar, I mean, I've been playing guitar and piano, and I use the word play somewhat liberally here. I consider myself a guitar operator and a piano operator. Compared to people who really play these things, I'm not that person. But I can operate them more than well enough so that it does not get in the way of my ability to sing. And it, in fact, facilitates my ability to sing. So I probably could have played the ukulele a bit more, and it seemed like a really good idea at the time. But for the most part now, my ukulele gets played by my daughters. It's like the mini guitar, and they have a blast with it. So that's great. And especially before they were big enough to hold like an actual guitar, the ukulele was a really nice thing for them to be able to experiment with and plink around on. That or the piano too. I'm happy to have them at the piano. Hey Jeff, so glad to make a live event. Are there any weather situations you try to avoid singing in? Well, dust storm would certainly be one of them. Kimberly, you remind me of a gig I did one time at the Wharf in San Francisco when this was decades ago. I don't even know if they still have live music there or not, but I wanted to get in the rotation for, I forget the name of the kind of Canary. It's not Canary Wharf. I'm thinking of London. I don't know. I'll think of it in a second. Anyways, this is back in the day when you booked gigs there, you like phoned up the guy and said like, hey, I'd like to get on the roster. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. Totally happy to get you on there. But you got to realize that, you're new and there are people here who've been playing here for decades. So I can't really give you the prime slots. And I was like, I understand. That's fine. I'm happy to pay my dues. He wasn't joking. So I was playing, I'm pretty sure I had it was either a 6 to 8 p.m. slot, or it might have even been like a 7 to 9 or something like that. It was really late and it was a Wednesday and it was in January or February. And this is San Francisco. So it's probably 36, maybe 40 degrees out there. For those who are in the centigrade area, we're talking like 2 or 3 degrees. That was rough. I would choose to do something different given the choice. And I would probably have made more accommodations for the repertoire that I was singing that night had I realized what I was getting myself into. Still really fun. And there were some people that were, it was really weird because I was playing and I was using amplification, even though every shop was closed and there was literally no one there. But they could hear me out on the street up above. And then these people came down and it turned out I knew them. They were some friends of mine who were out at a bar in the area having a drink, and they came down and I was playing a song from a friend of mine, Dave Armo. Check out his stuff on Spotify, whatnot. And I was playing one of his songs, and they heard me playing their friend's song. And they're like, who's this guy covering one of Dave's tunes? That was me. Anyway. So yeah, I would avoid that again. Before you sing, do you add effects like compression or EQ tricks? So Rich Fleming, okay, so I sort of take a little bit of issue with the word tricks here. I don't know how much of a trick it is, because all a compressor does is make sure that you stay within a certain volume bandwidth. It's bringing the softer stuff up a little bit and bringing the louder stuff down so that you get adequate, good volume signal on your end. So I use compression. I'm using 2 compressors on this vocal chain. There's one that is happening right after the mic preamp to kind of take a little bit if I decide to sing, and especially too in this application, when I go from talking to singing, the volume difference can be quite great. So the compressor there helps to just sort of round out any kind of peaks that may happen early on. And then I have a stereo bus compressor that I'm using just to make sure that the entirety of the collection of sounds, piano and vocal mic, all get out to you, and it never gets too quiet, but it also never gets too loud. I do not have any EQ running currently. I don't like using EQ on the front end of things. I'm happy to use EQ in post-production, mostly to carve out space in the mix. So when I'm mixing something, I tend to think of everything in a sort of stratified way. So bass frequencies, guitars and middle range frequencies, and vocals fit in there somewhere, and then upper register air and stuff like that. I sort of want to carve out space in that sonic environment so that everything sits quite nicely and plays well together. A little bit of water here. All right. All right, go green. I see the go green there. Let me see. Back up a little bit. Happy to see you today, Jeff. Just tuning in. Susan, thank you so much. Juan, here's a question for you. How can I improve my piano playing while singing? I'm an okay singer, but a terrible piano player. That's kind of the same boat that I'm in. One, practice them separately. And I would recommend that you figure out what your priority is. So if you are singing and playing, then I would make the piano parts simpler to accommodate the singing. But then if you have like a little 8-bar break and you want to do something more elaborate on the piano, make the piano part more complicated, but make sure that you have time to practice those parts, work those parts out. I think that, like good examples of this, whether you like them or not, listening to Elton John, I think Elton John does this quite adeptly. The piano parts, when he's not singing, can have lots of cool passages in them, little passing tones and different things and stuff like that. And then you get into when he's singing, and it can still be complicated at times, but it's much less complex than what happens when he's not singing. So work those parts out, take the time to practice those adequately, and over time, it'll get better and better. You may have to, continually choose more complex little parts to practice and challenges, but that's what it is to be a musician. It's not a destination, it's a process. Juan, again, of course, says, go green. Yeah, greetings from Michigan. Greetings from California. Karen, hi, Jeff. Love your method. And when I do most of your exercises, everything goes well. But when I'm singing a song, I never have enough breath. Strange but true. I get so frustrated with this. Any tips? Obviously, evaluate your methodology for your breath support. And forgive me, I do not mean to speak out of turn here, but very frequently when I make that statement, folks are very quick to say, I got support. I've got my support worked out. Okay, but you're telling me it's not working here. So maybe there's a connection there. I talked about this more at length earlier on today, but in summary, what's the specific word you used? Have enough breath. So you're talking about enough breath. So the volume in your lungs is set. What you have, you cannot appreciably change it. How you use it, however, you can have quite a great deal of effect on. This is a complex system. I don't mean it's hard. It just means that it's comprised of several different facets. One of those facets is vowel alignment. How efficiently are your vocal folds adducting such that your vowels align? Another aspect of that system is your expansion. How are you expanding? If you're saying that you're sticking your stomach out and sucking it back in, and that's support, I have to tell you that is largely ineffective. And I realize that is contrary to a lot of what you may have been told in the past and what you will have found online, and that a lot of high-profile people will tell you is in fact true. I am here to say that it is not exactly like that. You also have to ask yourself how you are engaging, how you are recruiting musculature in the core of your body to create subglottic air pressure, to create support, if I was going to summarize all that in one word. This is a dynamic situation, so that support changes depending on where you are in your range. All of those things are going to go into how efficiently you use your column of air. How you execute those items will also dictate how quickly you can inhale, such that you can get short breaths mid-phrase as needed in order to kind of give the impression that you're doing this on one long breath, when in fact you're taking short breaths. And FYI, I saw this in one of the books that I read. I have to find it so I can quote it directly, but it was in regards to the Farinelli method, which is a very popular method of teaching breathing and practicing breathing technique. It's not really a breathing technique because it doesn't, at least I haven't seen how they go through the physical way of holding one's body in order to facilitate the exercises, but the exercises themselves are great when used in conjunction with appagio breath management. Appagio breath management is a method for holding your body and using your body to create support, subglottic air pressure. Farinelli was quoted as saying that people are given the impression that he's able to sing these incredibly long phrases, but that was not true. That was not accurate. They were given that impression because his breaths were being taken mid-phrase so quickly that no one could spot them. So, when we use the word illusion, it gives the impression that it is disingenuous or somehow false. And yet, to some, it appears to be an illusion. When I watch a magician, I have no idea what they're doing. They are creating illusions to me. Those very same illusions to the magician are processes, practices that they execute that create an illusion for me. So in the same way that they execute their trade, we as vocalists, and again, I'm talking about Farinelli here, when we have proper expansion and engagement, and I would advocate for the appagio breath management system to learn that, then we can take breaths so quickly and so silently, just almost instantly, really, that they will not be noticed by our listeners. And that's it. And so it gives this perception of the long phrase, when in fact that is not the case. That being said, practice appagio and you will be able to sing longer phrases just because the overall efficiency of the system does get enhanced quite dramatically. And I know I talked about this before, and I'm going to mention it one more time because it keeps on coming up, and that's kind of why I did this. I just redid my website, and I just did a brand new breathing for singing method, and it is all about learning appagio breath management. It is filled, as so much of my work is done these days, with practical exercises and ways to practice so that you can learn appagio and then implement it into your singing and reap the benefits of that practice, which for me fundamentally changed my singing. Da 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 da. Sing song. One last question: why is it that sometimes I sound like a baritone and others like a tenor? Interesting. It could be for a variety of reasons. It could be how you are kind of using your airflow and resonating that day. If you are kind of allowing for more forward point resonance and brightening the sound, you're perhaps being a bit lighter on the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice in general, then you may end up sounding more like a tenor. If you're using more of that thyroarytenoid activity, kind of pressing into that sound a bit more, sound a bit more like a baritone. Thank you very much, Juan. It's very kind of you. Exercise to add more ring to your voice with better consistency. That's Andrew James Weber. Yeah, I like the NG noise for that. And then, so you make that noise by saying hung. And a lot of people want to go hung, or they'll go hung here. And then when they practice it, they go hung, and they sing an sound. No, it's the nose thing. And you're looking for that buzz in the front of your face to remain consistent. And then, when that's working quite nicely, release to ah. And you can find more ring, more buzz that way. Hello from the Philippines. Hello from California, Ralph Palermo. I have sinusitis, ouch, and it's like blocking my nose. Does it affect my singing? Yeah, of course. Well, you might be able to sing, but if you got a lot of postnasal drip, you might not want to. That could really irritate the vocal fold, make it painful. and it may prolong your recovery. So, you know, see what your doctor says, but if you can, I would just take a little bit of time off. I love tepid water. Me too, Rich. We can hear you, just not the glug, glug, glugging. That's good. No one wants to hear the glug, glug, glugging. Whoa. Thank you for that. I've got to wrap it up, everybody. I'm so sorry. I don't know if I've managed to get to every question in quite some time, but thank you very, very much all for being here. Thank you for watching, listening, asking your questions. I always love the questions. I'm gonna do this more regularly, so you know you'll be able to catch me more frequently. You won't have to wait. It was pretty random for a while there. I just was kind of like randomly doing it. Yeah, you know, thanks for being here. I'm sorry I didn't get to all your questions. Shout out for the new jeffrolka.com. If you like this kind of learning, you might consider Rolka's Vocal Community. It is an inexpensive way to be able to ask questions and post audio or video examples for me to review. My Breathing for Singing course, which we seem to have talked about a lot today, I'm always glad to do so, is all about passagio breath management. Changed everything for me. If you have even a question about your breathing, I would at least recommend checking out the page, seeing if it sounds like anything that you've been dealing with, and consider the method. And if you want to check out my teaching methodology on the website without having to, you know, invest anything, check out my AAA method. It's been free for a long, long time. Just got to sign up for the newsletter, and you can always unsubscribe. Anyways, thank you all so very much. I love your questions. Thank you for being a part of the channel. Thanks for everything. It's a real privilege to be able to chat with you and talk about singing and teach music and do the kinds of things that I get to do every single day. I'm very grateful to you and for this opportunity. So have a lovely, lovely day. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question today, but hopefully you can catch me in the RVC, Rolka's Vocal Community, or maybe next time here at the live event. Cheers. Bye.